Hello, this is Amy Zaley with the Friday, February 17 Jerusalem Connection Report Red Alert. BDS movement, it's not taking a winter break. Last week I reported on some gains at the international and at the local level against BDS activities on college campuses and on the world stage. This is great news, but the BDS movement is not sitting back and taking defeat lightly. While many political groups, for example, in Germany and around the world, are formally recognizing BDS activities and anti-Zionism as anti-Semitism, the German courts are starting to push back a little bit in a different vein. And this was evident in a recent court case wherein three Palestinian young men were arrested for firebombing a Jewish synagogue in Germany. Now, the prosecution stated that this was a hate crime and anti-Semitic by nature. However, the court ruled that while it was still criminal vandalism, it was not a hate crime, as the anti-Zionist motivation wasn't anti-Semitic. It was simply focused or expressed as an outrage or a protest against Israel's policy in the Middle East. This doesn't really make any sense to me, because the particular Jews who go and worship at that synagogue probably have very little or nothing to do or any power in Israel or with the ministries or elected officials that make said policies that these Palestinians claim they were angry at when they firebombed the synagogue. Now, banks in Germany are pulling the plugs on BDS bank accounts because of the exposed ties to terrorism and its funding. Moreover, civic groups and labor union groups are also banning BDS activities in their communities and participation in BDS actions. The boycott, divest, sanction movement is trying to choke Israel through the use of economic power, and as well seem to target Jews worldwide as a representative of Israeli practices. As such, the notion of anti-Zionism is quickly crossing over and is one and the same as anti-Semitism. So here lies the true comparison. Another example includes two conferences that were going on in Paris this month. In the same building, there was a combating BDS conference as well as a pro-BDS conference. Now, a press from around the world were in attendance in the building and around the community. Israeli press holders were denied entry to the pro-BDS conference, whereas the combating BDS conference invited members of the pro-BDS conference to come and listen in and engage in a dialogue. So this reveals a little bit about the two sides of this issue. The lack of transparency by the BDS movement to engage in any kind of dialogue or even any reporting about what it espouses. Another example is the Queen Mary University in London just this month had a pro-BDS event on campus with a speaker. Several Jewish students attended the speech and during a dialogue session have raised their hands to question and correct the record for many misstatements, lies, or lack of context stated by the speaker. Now, instead of engaging in a reasoned dialogue and examining facts or different viewpoints of facts even, instead these students were shouted down. In a childlike harassment way, they were bullied into silence by being cussed at, and they were ridiculed for both their looks and their heritage, and the statements are quite atrocious. It is, you can go see these events, the recording of these events, on Peter Collier's website, which is titled Beyond the Great Divide, The Truth Matters. You can just Google it. His page is full of reports and videos shot of not just this event, but others wherein he analyzes and he fact checks events to make sure that the truth about what's going on college campuses and what's going on to vilify both the nation of Israel and Jewish people worldwide, including Jewish students, is not silenced but revealed to the world. You know, just this past week, I was at a networking meeting one evening in my home county of Loudoun, Virginia. And at this meeting, there was a gentleman who was a retired attorney, Harvard educated, Wharton Business School educated, and he just happened to get on the topic of the new administration and how hopeful he was for it, and that he was of Jewish origin but has not been to Israel and would like to go. He explained that he's not a religious or practicing Jew, but over the past several years has noticed, and with great offense taken to himself because he's proud of his heritage, the malignment that the nation of Israel has suffered, and the bad press and the treatment from the previous U.S. administration as well as by the UN. And he decided that at this point in life he cannot sit back and not do anything. So what he does, he told us, is that in this private conversation, is that he is aware of various meetings that are going around in his area in Montgomery County, Maryland, and he attends those, and he votes and he participates in activities that will support Israel or causes that support Israel. And he also will engage in conversation when he's at parties and restaurants or out in the community where people are starting to discuss these kinds of topics about Israel and the UN and U.S. support and the BDS movement, and that he will engage and insert himself politely and diplomatically into these conversations. And he does this with a lot of finesse because he asks a lot of questions. And then he asks people to explain their position, and asking more questions, he has them almost examine their own position on the position. And he also conveys his own thoughts about the ideas of justice and fairness and values. And I thought this was very interesting to meet this man last week because it embodies what we should all be doing. There are Jews, there are Christians, there are atheists, people from other faiths who are all just recognizing that there's something wrong with the way the world and large organizations, including the last administration or the UN or university bodies, are treating Israel and Jewish people in general, and that it's not right, and it's incongruent with the vein of American values and of Western values of fairness and justice. And so from that meeting, I took a lesson that we just all have to keep our ear out and participate how we can in our own community. And that could be with just conversations with our friends and neighbors and at parties and restaurants and out and about. And it can also be within social media sites and sharing news stories that reveal some of these things. Donating time or money to organizations to help them get the word out, and to write letters to your own college alma mater or to your own representatives in your state, local, or federal system so that you can express your concerns for how things should be done in the treatment of Israel as far as their policies. This gentleman also mentioned that he by no means thought all of Israel's policies were perfect and there was nothing to debate. And that's the key. Israel as a nation is made up of human beings, and therefore there are times it makes mistakes, and there are times it needs to be fixed, just like America, just like any country. So in that case, an honest and reasoned debate can occur about Israel and about its policies that are done in a fair and just way with a congruent or equal hand that you would examine any organization or nation, and not with a bias undermining vein of just removing it from the map. And that's the core of the BDS movement, which is on so many college campuses in the West, and why it is so dangerous. So be vigilant, speak up, and act where you can. And in this way you can help, and you will join forces with people that you'll never realize that you would cross paths with, and it's a wonderful thing. Shavua Tov. Have a great week, and Shabbat Shalom.